Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. Last week we made it as far as St. Augustine, Florida, and this week, come hell or high water, we're going to make the final 15-mile trek to our winter stomping ground, which is the Matanzas Inlet. I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. Speaking of high water, we did get stuck in the St. Augustine area for 3 or 4 days. There were a couple of days of very high wind coming in, so we actually bounced back up to the mile 769 anchorage. That stand of trees to the east provided perfect cover for that wind that was coming in, and it was raining for days on end, so we actually had a lot of flooding that was going on. So while we were at mile 769, the beach, even at low tide, was pretty impassable, but we gave it a go anyway. When heading southbound out of St. Augustine, you do have to pass through the Bridge of Lions, which is a beautiful bascule bridge. It does open on the top and bottom of the hour. I believe it does not open at 8 a.m., noon, and 4 p.m. You just have to double check that when coming through the area. But this is a beautiful bridge. The entire downtown St. Augustine at night, it is lit up like a Christmas tree. The entire bridge is lit up. It is just beautiful. And Castillo de San Marcos, which was a fort built in the 1600s by the Spanish, is right there. And they light that very subtly at night. It highlights the Spanish architecture. It is just absolutely stunningly beautiful, that area. And while it is a wonderful place for us on our journey south, it's very important for provisioning reasons, but it's not somewhere that we want to stay very often. And that's because there really isn't a great place to anchor. Now, there are plenty of places that you can anchor, but most of the good anchorages have been, they've been consumed, I should say, by mooring fields for the local marinas. So I just talked to Kristen and Peter. They're a couple of friends of mine, and they have anchored south of the municipal mooring field. And I was always leery of going down there just because it looked too shallow, according to the sonar charts, and there's a lot of derelicts in there, and that can be... It can make you nervous anchoring around a bunch of derelicts. So I've always avoided that, but they've stayed there and they said it's great. So that looks like a good spot there. But the other ones, like in front of Castillo de San Marcos, while it's great in settled weather, if you've got a wind coming out of the east, it'll blow right in the inlet and then you'll get ocean wind and waves, which is not comfortable. And if you anchor over by the Volano Beach Bridge, which is where we normally stay, the boat traffic there on the weekend is crazy, and if there's high wind, you can get some chop there as well. So it's just not a very nice place to be long term. So we do, we love St. Augustine. It's a great place, but it's time for us to get out of here. We got all the supplies we need, so we're going to pass through the Bridge of Lions and head down to our winter haven, which is Matanzas Inlet. Every year when I head south, there seems to be kind of a theme to the year, and this year it is the year of the grounded sailboat. I've seen no less than 23 grounded sailboats this year, and it's very strange. You know, I've seen people hit shoals and then get out of it and then go directly back into the shoal again, so it's very bizarre. And I've seen people traveling outside of the channels where it is known to be shallow, so I don't, you can bushwhack a lot of times, but if you're going off of sonar charts and you know it's going to be shallow, I don't understand why they're going there. Now, I use Navionics, and I'm assuming there must be some other nav program out there that maybe the maps aren't updated, or maybe these travelers haven't updated their maps, although a lot of these maps don't really change a lot, so it's very puzzling. But I've seen just tons and tons of grounded boats this year, and I passed 2 of them between the Bridge of Lions and the Crescent Beach Bridge, which there's only like 10 miles between them, so it was very strange. But I have seen just tons and tons of grounded boats this year, going all the way back up to North Carolina, and I don't know, it's weird. It seems like every year there's a theme. This year it's grounded boats. Last year it was sunken boats. There were just so many, calls for Mayday on the radio, boats taking on water, and let's see, Bull Creek in South Carolina, when I came through in the fall, there was no sunken boat there. When I went back through in the spring, there was a sunken ketch, which is a sailboat, in Skull Creek in South Carolina. Same deal. When I went back north in the spring, there was a new sunken sailboat in Skull Creek. Calabash Creek, right on the edge of North and South Carolina, a sunken fishing boat there that wasn't there in the fall. So just very bizarre. And it seems like, you know, every year has a theme. So 3 years ago, it was, unfortunately, it was drownings. And that might be attributed to I went further south that year and I stayed later in the year, so there might have been some spring break stuff in there, but the radio was just an absolute horror show. I was picking up Coast Guard sector Miami, and it was just a nightmare. So I'm glad that is gone. I guess you could say we're trending up every year. 3 years ago was drownings, last year was sunken sailboats, and this year is just grounded sailboats. So I guess we're heading in the right direction. But this has been the year of the grounded sailboat for whatever reason. And I do just have to say, I am not passing judgment on anyone that grounds. I have grounded myself a handful of times. I think anyone who's been at this, you know, doing this for any amount of time has grounded. It's just something that happens. You can lose concentration for a second, wander outside of a channel. You know, I think in a lot of ways maybe I'm lucky because I don't have an autopilot, so I am usually 100% focused on where I'm going. That being said, you know, I have grounded, so there are times when I've lapsed in that responsibility. But I think maybe sometimes if you've got autopilot and maybe you're not paying as close of attention, maybe you can wander outside of where you're supposed to be in ground. I don't know. I've never had that luxury, so I can't say. But, you know, I'm not passing judgment on anyone at all that grounds. You know, grounding is interesting. If you're a new boater, don't feel bad about grounding and don't be embarrassed. There was a couple once. I was anchored in Florida. It was just outside of Jacksonville, and a couple got brought in by towboat. It was just south of the Nassau Inlet, or the Nassau River. I guess they call it Nassau Sound, but it's just a little river. So it was just south of there, and the couple that was towed in and towboat helped them anchor. They had just been they had just grounded, and I talked to them on the radio. Every time I see a boat that's grounded, I reach out to them just to make sure they're okay. Everything's, no one's in it's not an emergency situation. And I reached out to this couple to talk to them just to make sure they were okay, and they were really distraught. This was like their second or third day boating, and they had grounded, and they had to get hauled out by towboat, so I tried to reassure them as best I could. Hey, look, we've all done it. It's happened to all of us. It's going to happen again. It's not the end of the world. You're safe. Your boat's safe. Life is good. You have to relax. It's okay. And I actually grounded pretty close to where they did. It was in, I believe it's the Amelia River, just south of Fernandina Beach. There's some shoaling in that river, and I wasn't paying attention, and I just bumped up on a shoal. And unfortunately, in that area, the tide swing was so great that I would have been on my side. The tide was going out, so it was the worst possible scenario. And I did have to have towboat come and rescue me. So that's the only time I've had to get help from a shoal. I've bumped ground probably 5 or 6 times, and I've actually been stuck maybe 3 other times. But in those situations, usually it was at dead low tide, like north of Charleston. It gets very shallow in the intracoastal waterway. So sometimes you just have to wait for the tide to come in, and that's what I did. So if you're a new boater, absolutely do not feel bad if you ground. It's going to happen. And if you're talking to someone who's been sailing a boat for 4 or 5 years and they tell you they've never grounded, they're full of shit. So, don't get bent out of shape. If just assess the situation. If you're in danger because of an outgoing tide, then, contact towboat, whoever you need to. But panic is the worst thing you can do. And don't feel bad about it, because it happens to all of us. By this time, we were only about 4 miles away from Matanzas Inlet, and there was one obstacle in our way, and that is the Crescent Beach Bridge. The Crescent Beach Bridge is awesome. It's on demand. The operators there are absolute legends. They open the bridge. You don't even have to slow down. They'll get you through, and they're all very friendly. I've never had a bad experience at the Crescent Beach Bridge. Everyone just seems really, really cool there. So they seem to be a laid-back, chill bunch. So they're awesome. And it was kind of funny because on this day, you know, when they're opening a bascule bridge like this, they actually lower, you know, traffic, I guess traffic aids, the big bridge, or like you do at a railroad crossing, I don't know what they're called, the big arms that come down to stop traffic, and then once the traffic is cleared from both sides, then they can open the bridge. And it was kind of funny because this day a couple of cars had snuck past the arm while it was coming down, and then I guess in a panic they backed up and they tried to sit in front of the arm waiting for the bridge to open. And then, you know, they were gonna kind of like, you know, when you see a red light and you get halfway through it, you know, you try and back up, but in this case there was an arm down and they couldn't. So there was a little confusion there. They had to wait. Then the bridge operator had to wait for the cars to go across, which they were reluctant to do. So it was kind of a little cluster there for a second, and I actually had to slow down. So, which is absolutely no big deal to me, of course. You know, what do I care? But it was funny. The bridge operators, they were so, the bridge operator was very apologetic that I had to slow down. So it's just a very big contrast to some of these bridge operators that think they walk on water, and the Crescent Beach Bridge. Just an amazing crew, amazing staff there. And alas, like a conquering crew returning from a 9-month crusade, we return to our home of Matanzas Inlet. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.